It's on the Rise with Benny, and today I'm joined with an incredible woman. And not only is she a singer, but she can play guitar like no other, which is amazing to see. And her 2024 tour just kicked off a few weeks ago, and she just told me she is going international, which I cannot wait for her to tell us about. And she has been a Spotify breakthrough artist, Apple Music new country artist, and many more. I welcome Maggie Baugh to On the Rise.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me.
Wait, did I say that last name right? No.
You're good. It's Bob, but don't worry about
Ah,
it.
okay. So, Maggie, give us kind of your background. What has your journey in music looked like, and how did you gain the recognition you have now?
Oh my gosh. I'm originally from South Florida, Boca Raton, and I started playing violin when I was 6 years old. So I was classically trained in and out of orchestra classes and orchestra school for years. And I started writing music and playing guitar around the age of 12. And I started coming to Nashville when I was 13, and I just started touring around South Florida. You know, it's festival season all year round there because they don't have
Yeah.
seasons. So you could be performing in hot as hell in December. But I started performing around South Florida and working my way up from singing for 8 hours to headlining festivals and everything in between. And I'm so grateful I've been able to tour across the US as well at such a young age. And I moved to Nashville when I was 18, and I turned 24 in a few weeks. So I've been here ever since.
Oh my gosh. So has music, you said growing up you've always been musically, you've always been doing something in music. Is this always something you were like, I want to pursue this? Or did you ever think it was possible as a career?
Actually, at such a young age, I really wanted to go to Juilliard and be a classical musician. I performed at Carnegie Hall when I was 11, and I truly did believe that that was my career path. I loved classical music, but it wasn't until I started getting bullied at school. I went to a fine arts program in sixth and seventh grade, and I started getting bullied, and I used music and songwriting as a way to cope with what I was going through. And to use it as an escape. And so that's when I actually started singing and songwriting and playing guitar. Was at 12 years old. So I didn't really know that I wanted to be the next Shania Twain until
Oh,
halfway through
oh
my
my
life.
gosh. So instruments, that was, I feel like usually a lot of people start writing first. They'll start writing poems, or like a lot of people I've talked to, they just start putting words together and then they start
Yeah.
singing. But yours was very instrument based. And so you learned to do that before you really were like, I'm going to sing.
Yeah, it's really funny because a lot of people don't know that. They just think that every single singer and female artist up here was singing Taylor Swift in their hairbrush at 10, 11 years old. And I was like, I was not. I was learning Bach and Beethoven when I was 6. So I was classically trained and went to school for it. And it wasn't until 12 years old, like I said, that I fell in love with country music and started singing and songwriting and putting music out.
So have you ever, so you're obviously touring now and stuff, and you've done some
Hmm.
other tours, but have you ever just been part of a band for somebody because of your talent?
It's funny, there's every once in a while, there'll be something that pops up that I did where I was actually a background musician. I was the fiddle player in the music video for Luke Bryan and Pitbull and Trace Adkins, Where the Country Girls At. I
Shut
played
up.
yeah,
Oh my
but,
gosh.
that wasn't live, I was just there. But, I played acoustic guitar for, on the Kelly Clarkson show for Sam Hunt and Ingrid Andress. So every once in a while, there'll be something that pops up that I do, but I'm mainly my own artist and my front man.
Wow. I think it's really, there's something really special though that when you can do all of it, it brings such a different, like you bring so much more to the table, not just a great voice or something. You really, it's like you can kind of do it all. So you can kind of do it all on your own if you have to,
Yeah.
you
It's
know?
really fun because it kind of puts a perspective in, like, being part of the band, you know? A lot of artists, like, don't
Yeah.
know what it's like to be in the background and be touring as a musician, so I'm really grateful that I've had that background to be able to appreciate my band a little bit more than the normal artist.
Yeah. So so you said obviously the classical music is how you started, but you ended up kind of in that Nashville country. Have you always listened to country music, or was it kind of like how did that happen?
Well, it's funny, when people ask me what music I listened to growing up, I always say, country music, classical and country. My dad is from West Texas,
Oh,
so that's kinda how country music fell into my lap, and they always ask, they're like, "Did you grow up on Johnny Cash?" I was like, "No, I was too young for that. I grew up on Chicken Fried by Zach Brown." So by Zach Brown.
oh my gosh. So you released your debut album in 2023, correct? Am I right?
Yeah, what's funny is I actually started releasing records and albums since I was 13, but this is the only one that you'll find online.
I was going to say, I didn't see anything about that.
Yeah, which is why it's called my debut album because this is who I am now as an artist and my songwriting. I don't really want people to judge me based on what I wrote in middle school.
No, I
But
love
yeah,
that. It's like
this
your
is actually
first
like my seventh album I've ever recorded.
Maggie. Oh my gosh. So 14 tracks on it. And how did this come about? What was the process behind it? Like figuring out, okay, this is my first real album I want the world to listen to.
hmm
How am I going to do this?
What's funny is in the journey of being an independent artist, when you have a bunch of songs that you're just really excited about, you're like, you debate whether or not you're going to put them on an album or release them as singles. And so in 2023, I just had so much music, and I was like, okay, let's keep recording and putting them out as singles every 6 weeks, like Spotify wants you to do. And it wasn't until probably the spring where I realized I had like 64 weeks of music or something crazy like that. And then I was like, then you got to factor in like the holidays and stuff, and I probably wouldn't be releasing these songs till like this year, and I was like too impatient for that. And I kind of went back to my roots. Like I've been releasing an album, like 13 songs, 10 to 13 songs every single year since I was 13. And it wasn't until I kind of got into the Nashville business where I was like, okay, we're gonna switch to singles. But I had all this music, and I it was all encompassed around the same concept. And
Mhm.
so I was like, you know what? Like these are all around the same wavelength. I was like, why don't we just stick them on an album? And I always told the universe that if I ever had a song called Dear Me, I've always wanted to write it. I had the title forever, I had the concept forever. And I said, if I ever wrote it, I'd want that to be the title track of an album. So it wasn't until spring I wrote the song and I had it. And I was like, well, the universe just gave me the song, title track of the record. So I guess we got to put it all on a CD.
Um, well, I first heard of you because of your song "Dear Me." I'll never forget the first time.
Oh,
I I get tired of, especially being in the studio all day listening to the same music over and over. I like go on these like down in these rabbit holes and find all this new music, and I'm
oh
on
my gosh, I love that.
because I get so there's so many people out there with such incredible voices and storytellers, and they don't get the recognition that they deserve. And it's not until people, I'm a country risers, like a new country type of listener. And so I'll never forget listening to Dear Me for the first time. I think Country Central posted it or something, or it was,
Oh,
I don't remember, but I was like, Mom, you have to listen to this song.
I love that. That
And
means a
we're
lot.
just like in tears. And so obviously, like you said, that's the title track. And I think it could hit home for a lot of people. Like we're kind of regardless of where you're at, and kind of give us the backstory on this song for the people listening that kind of don't know your sound. What's this song about?
Yeah.
And you said it's a title track, so just tell us a little bit about that.
It is. So, Dear Me is actually my own mental health story. So, back when I told you that I was getting bullied at school, I almost took my own life. So, I am a suicide survivor. And I never really wanted to go to schools and kind of advocate for mental health and kind of use, I feel like sometimes people can use organizations as a negative and not use the music and their voice and their hard work to get to where they want to be. So I never really felt comfortable going in and being an advocate for that at such a young age. So I kind of wanted to use what I went through to be able to songwrite and be able to be who I am, and let that kind of
Yeah.
move my career. But it wasn't until this past year where I was like, I got to a place where I feel like I can finally have a voice, and something I say might mean something to somebody. So mental health is a huge, is very dear and near to my heart. And I actually was involved with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention 2 years ago. I performed at a lot of their walks just because I wanted to. I just wanted to be
Yeah.
there, and I would perform some songs. And it wasn't until I wrote Dear Me where I was like, okay, I think I can take this like to another level and really team up with them. So when I wrote Dear Me, it's completely my mental health story, and I'm so grateful that at the end of the music video on YouTube, the AFSP put their logo and helpline number at the end of it, and we teamed up on social media, and I performed at their walks last year as well. So I'm really, really grateful that that song took on a completely new life than just my feelings and my heart and my story.
Oh my gosh. Well, I love that you like kind of waited and you were like, I want this to really mean something, and I want this to be the main focus,
Yeah.
of my story. And I can understand where you're coming from. A lot of people I feel like can use it doesn't always not everybody is the same, and not everybody's story is the same, and going and advocating, this is your way of advocating. Do
Yeah.
what you love and who you are. And I think that if it wasn't music, it wouldn't feel
hmm
right to you. You
And
know?
it's so crazy because it wasn't until this past year where I did get involved with the AFSP where I realized that I'm actually 90% of the population. You know, before, like, I didn't hurt myself, I wasn't in the hospital. I just never really felt like my story was good enough. And there's so many people who are literally fighting for their life every day. And I never really thought that like my feelings were justified and on the same level as them. So I never really felt comfortable preaching or talking about it. But it wasn't until I sat down with the organization where they're like, Maggie, you're 90% of the population. Like, you are today's generation
90?
where people
It's
are where you're
90?
at. Yeah, it's a huge percentage. It's up there. Please don't quote me on that if this gets written down, but it's a
Oh,
high percentage.
wow.
But yeah, and then I realized I was like, like maybe I do have a voice and what I say matters. So I started getting heavily involved with them last year, performing a lot more at their walks. I went all over Tennessee. I did Memphis, Chattanooga, and Nashville.
Do you still do some work with them?
I have contacted the organization and we're going to try to figure out how we can work together again this year. If it's performing at
Oh,
walks or just teaming up on social media, but yeah.
yeah, that's amazing. I think that just shows to everybody listening, whatever you're going through, your story does matter. And I know we can all feel like sometimes what we're going through, it doesn't compare to what others go through, but what everybody's going through matters. And so if you can take one thing from this interview, definitely take that. But Maggie, kind of to go back into the music. So you collabed with Adam Sanders
I
on a
did.
song, and that one was called Lie About the Truth, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that and how'd you and Adam end up doing this together?
So I'm a huge fan of Adam. He is a great songwriter, a fantastic artist. His last project that came out, his last album, is just absolutely fantastic. And I'm just a huge fan of his, both as a songwriter as an artist. I mean, he's written huge hits for Cole Sandell and Dustin Lynch. And so I actually met him through a mutual friend, and we've just kind of kept in touch in the industry. And
I
he
was gonna
needed a
ask
female.
if you reached out to him or how that happened.
We kind of just met through a mutual friend, and then we kind of just kept in touch. But
Welcome to Nashville.
I know everybody knows everybody who knows somebody else. But yeah, we just kept in touch, and he was looking for a female demo singer actually, and I was like, I volunteered my services. I was like, yeah, I could probably figure this out. That was like 8 months ago. It's crazy that it just came out now, and it was one of those things that I didn't really think that I was going to get the part. I didn't know that it was like an audition thing. And finally, at the a few months later, he was like, "Hey, I actually want you to be featured on this," and I was like, well, I'm not complaining. I'm a huge fan. Let's put it out. And then it was actually a surprise to me that it was actually on the album. I thought it was going to be a single like 8 months ago, and then I didn't hear anything, and I was like, well. And then it came out on the record, and I was like, hell yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And I think it's really important for artists like him and others to help inspire, especially independent artists. There's so many, and that's really cool that you guys kind of built that connection.
Thanks. And it was really fun to be able to like kind of step out of my comfort zone too. I mean, that's not a song that I would put out personally, but it's really cool to be able to tap into another side of an artistry that I necessarily wouldn't do myself, but to be able to be featured on a track like that is just really awesome. So y'all
Yes.
go stream it.
Did you mention, I don't know if you, I don't, did you guys, were you part of writing that or no? Was that all him?
No, I was just featured.
Okay, just featured. Gotcha. And you are a songwriter as well, right? So you do,
Yeah, I do.
do you write, do you have a pub deal or anything?
I don't. I'm 100% independent, but I co-write everything. Every single song I'm a part of.
Oh, that's awesome. So I think that after just talking about the mental health stuff, and we're not gonna, I'll just say I relate. We could have a lot of a very deep conversation. But I think this next question is something that I think a lot of people would appreciate you answering. And I like to ask everybody that I interview just this last question, just because everybody has a different answer and everybody has a different journey and a different story. But what piece of advice would you give someone, maybe that is struggling with things that you've went through, or feels lost, or they don't know how to put their feelings into words? What would you, especially young women, because we go through a lot,
Yeah.
what advice would you give someone? Maybe she's a little girl's in the backseat of her mom's car listening right now. So
I'm gonna give advice, the same advice that was given to me years ago. I stumbled in 2011 or 12, way before I even started really songwriting, and I stumbled into a festival, and a girl was headlining. Her name's Caroline Cole, and she was 16 at the time, and she was just signed with Sony and was about to go on tour with Reba. This was like back when I had braces, so Lord, I was little. And I don't even think I owned my own guitar. I think I was playing my cousin's guitar at the time. But she told me to play anywhere and everywhere I can because I never know who's watching. And I would say that that is the same advice that I would give. I mean, some of my best shows that I've ever gotten and some of the coolest and biggest shows have come from me playing at a little bar from 5 people watching. And I'll never forget that I played a headlining show in South Florida, and it was my very first time performing at that venue, and everything that possibly could go wrong went wrong. But Brian O'Connell from Live Nation was sitting in the audience, and he asked my band and I if I wanted to play at Tortuga to open up for Eric Church the weekend after. And so it was one of those things that saying really meant a lot to me. And so I try my hardest. You know, it's so easy to get wrapped up in everything and not performing your best in front of 5 people. But every once in a while, you know, things like that happen, and it kind of brings you back. So that's the same advice that I would give anybody who's listening.
Oh no, I love that because I think it's all about it doesn't matter if you love what you do and it if I was an artist, because I think God meant to actually give me musical talent, but he just I'm convinced, but it's about reaching at least one, like one, if you can touch one person from that performance, if
Yeah,
it's not about, at least to me, that's not about what artistry is. That's not about what music is. It's about just touching someone,
I
it's
agree.
like you're speaking to them. And so I feel like a lot of artists get to a point in their career where they would get super pissed off if they
Yeah,
didn't have, 5,000 people or 15,000 people there, but people that really love what they do, I think it doesn't matter. So that's really awesome.
absolutely.
Well, Maggie, thank you so much for coming on to On the Rise. So awesome talking to a woman that is making a name for themselves, especially independent in Nashville. It's amazing. And I'm super excited to see all the cool things you do.